Welcome to the spring capsule wardrobe analysis, and you already know the drill. I've been tracking my daily outfits for the last 90 days on my phone in the Indyx app, and today I want to share all of the data, how much I wore each item, and also the lessons that I learned and that I'm gonna take with me for the shopping or styling, all of that. And I also wanted to mention that this time around I've been actually so busy. I had so many things going on, so in the last 3 months I created 81 outfits in total. As usual, I'm gonna start with the tops that I wore 0 times, and I only have 2 items here. The first one is this one that I adored in the fall, in the winter. It's just a black pattern kind of jumper, but yeah, for spring I just kind of wasn't feeling it. And then the same goes for the black sheer silk button-up. For some reason I just didn't reach for it. And then I have loads of items, or I should say 7 items that I wore only once, and I have quite a nice selection right here. First I have this gorgeous baby pink jumper, then I have the new white bodysuit that I just wore recently. I also have my bright sleeveless blouse that is really old. I think it's probably 10 plus years old. I have the white long cardigan. As you can see, I'm just gonna do it like this so you can see. Then I have my black off-shoulder jumper. I have the orange jumper, and lastly, the wine sleeveless turtleneck. I'm gonna put everything here, but I also wanna do a little bit of a color coordination, just a sec. And then another huge pile, and these are the items that I wore 2 times, and I have 8 pieces in here. So first I have my, again, new Intimissimi bodysuit that I just added. Then I have the fitted cami with thin straps. I have a classic black silk button-up, and I'm just gonna empty my hands a little bit. I have the very fun lace top. I have the bright pink jumper. I have the black sleeveless turtleneck. I have the black fitted cami, as you can see. And lastly, the white hoodie that is super fun. And then to the items that I wore 3 times. First, I have the classic silk white button-up. Then I have this one that I loved in the early spring, and it's just kind of a flute sleeve white jumper. And then the empty hanger is for the button-up that I'm wearing today, which I also wore 3 times. And then everything that I wore 4 times. First I have the turquoise jumper, then I have the nude jumper, and lastly the white fitted cami. And now we're slowly getting into my most worn items. Here I have 3 items that I wore 5 times. First I have the black t-shirt with unique sleeves. Then I have just a classic black long tee, and also my white crop tee. And then these are the last 4 pieces in my tops that I wore the most. First I have a black crew neck jumper that I wore 6 times. Then my black long cardigan, again I have it folded like this. This one I wore 8 times. My classic white tee that I love, I wore 9 times. And then my most worn item is actually another cardigan that it's short, it's a little bit more cropped, and I love to wear it kind of tied around my waist, and this one I wore 11 times. So a few lessons here that I'm kind of realizing. The first is, of course, something that I keep repeating all of the time. My neutral pieces are the most worn. But I'm also pleasantly surprised, I have to admit, that a lot of my colors are in the middle, not at the front. And then I also want to mention that this spring was actually really warm, so that obviously influenced which items I was reaching for. That's why my crop tops are more at the back and some of my jumpers are at the front. And then also because it was warmer, I wore my dresses a lot more. That's why I have loads of pieces that I only wore 2 or 3 times, because I was reaching for my dresses just a little bit more. Because if I remember correctly, in the previous spring, I think I wore my tops a lot more because the weather was just a little bit colder. So that's also something that I wanted to cover. But other than that, as I've said, I love my selection. I feel I have enough variety in the colors, silhouettes. So this is all good and nothing special to add here. But now I can go to my bottoms because I have some exciting lessons there, I believe. And now I just reorganized everything because it's gonna be much easier to put things back in the closet this way. So let me take everything off. As usual, the items that I wore 0 times, and I only have 1 this time, and that is my black mini skirt. And I have a hunch the reason I didn't wear it is because it's so washed out. I tried to salvage it with black tie, but it's not working. So, you know, that's my hunch, but I'm gonna see in the future if I reach for it a little bit more. And then I have 4 items that I wore 1 time. First, I have my white pants that I think are super cute. The second are my black shorts. They're kind of a staple for the entire year. And then 2 more black items. The first, I have the new black joggers, and the reason I wore this one only once is because my old pair was actually too big on me. So the only time that I wore this was actually, I think, 2 days ago. And then also my black midi satin skirt. This one I just wasn't reaching for. And then 2 items that I wore 2 times. First, I have the camel cropped pants, and then I have the black white trousers with pockets. And now we're jumping straight to the items that I wore 4 times. First, I have my white straight jeans. Then I have the newer edition taupe pants that were super warm. I have the new black mini skirt with shorts underneath. And then just a classic high-waisted black skinny jeans. And now another jump to the items that I wore 7 times. And here I actually have my white jeans. And then I also have my, again, classic high-waisted medium wash skinny jeans. And then to my 2 most worn items. First, I have my denim mini skirt that I wore, I think, 8 times. And then the empty hanger is for the jeans that I'm wearing today that I actually wore 21 times. How amazing is that? Now with my bottoms, I'm so happy that I'm wearing more lighter colors than I used to. If you remember, in the past, only black items were at the back, maybe medium wash, but mostly black items. But now, as you can see, we have loads of white in the back, and then also some taupe and camo, and then we have loads of black at the front. So I feel I really relax when it comes to lighter bottoms. In the past, I was kind of worried about staining them, but I got over that because it's honestly a little bit ridiculous to not enjoy items that we have in our wardrobe. But then also at the same time, I have to mention the reason I think I'm wearing my white jeans so much is because they're cheaper. So even if I stain them, which I have a few spots here and there, because they were so inexpensive, I don't really care that much, because even if I get them dirty, I know I can easily replace them. I still take good care of them though, don't get me wrong, but I just relaxed a little bit more. And then also you can see my denim skirt, I wore so much more, and I used to only have it in my summer capsule wardrobe where I never wore it. And then I was actually debating to declutter it completely because in the summer I just wasn't reaching for it. But because I know better, I tried to put it in my spring capsule wardrobe, and now it's one of my most worn items. And then lastly, what I wanted to mention is that I love my white jeans because they are so comfortable, and I've been just wearing them on repeat. As for the selection, I feel I have enough variety, enough colors, silhouettes, fits, all of that, so I'm really happy with everything. And now to my dresses. First, I have the 2 dresses that I wore 0 time. First is the black sleeveless bodycon dress, and the second is a long sleeve bodycon dress. And then the rest are my most worn dresses. First, I have this gorgeous red maxi dress that it's actually new, and I wore it 3 times. I love that. Then I have an older black dress. This one is actually a cami dress that it's also long. It's a maxi dress, and this one I wore 6 times. And then my most worn dress, it's a new addition to my wardrobe, and it's again a cami dress, but this one it's a midi length and it's also a little bit flowy, and this one I wore 7 times. As I've said before, I wore my dresses a lot more than usual, and I've been really enjoying the silhouette of all of these dresses because they're all either midi or a maxi length. I think with these 2, because they're kind of a mini length, I'm a little bit more hesitant to wear them because I don't want to worry about, you know, exposing myself and just readjusting myself all of the time, especially when I'm working from home. These are just so comfortable and I love them. But at the same time, I have to say that these dresses, I think I'm gonna wear more in the summer, specifically the sleeveless one, because I still do love my mini dresses. They're just not my everyday choice. And then I also wanted to mention, if you remember, usually in my transitional seasons, be it fall or spring, I just wasn't wearing my dresses because the selection that I had was just a little bit limiting for the transitional season. But these new dresses really changed the game for me. And when it comes to the selection, I'm really happy with what I have. But as I mentioned before, I would love to add a white t-shirt dress to my collection because I think that one would be perfect for the transition, even in the summer, but then also in the winter because I think I can easily layer it. And now I still have my outerwear, shoes, bags, and accessories to go through, but I'm gonna change my location and show you the items on the screen because it's gonna be much easier this way, trust me. And then I also wanted to mention that this is gonna be the last seasonal tracking video that I'm gonna be making, because I've been making this, I think, for the last 3 years, and honestly I feel the lessons are not groundbreaking anymore. I feel like I'm repeating myself. So my plan for the future is to do yearly analysis videos. So at the end of every year I'm gonna go into my closet in depth, analyze everything, all of the lessons, and I'm still gonna track everything because obviously I love it, but just seasonally I'm not gonna do this anymore. Maybe I can do just small little videos with the lessons that I learned. Maybe something like that can be an option, but this kind of videos in particular, this is gonna be the last one. And then also, because I just have you here, I would really appreciate that if you're enjoying this video, that you give it a thumbs up. Thank you. As I said, I'm gonna continue with my outerwear, and the first piece that I only wore one time is my black oversized blazer. Then my white fitted blazer I wore 2 times. My black blazer with silver details I wore 4 times. My white wool coat, or I would say ivory wool coat, I wore 5 times. My white denim jacket with the fun design I wore 6 times. The same goes for my black blazer with gold details. Then my denim jacket I wore 8 times. My black trench coat I wore 10 times. And then my black wool coat I wore 26 times. As you can see, I wore all of my outerwear pieces. I love my selection here. I've said this a million times before, but specifically I think this spring what I've noticed is that I wore my blazers just a little bit more than usual, and that is because I was just feeling that way. And I also think because the weather was a little bit warmer, I used my blazers as jackets a little bit more than I would usually in a transitional season. But other than that, do you have anything to add here? Maybe the only thing is that my husband's oversized black blazer, now that my body changed a little bit, that I'm training and eating differently, I feel now it's just a little bit too big on me and it's a little bit hard to wear it. So potentially I might look for something specifically for me, and he's also tired of me borrowing it. So maybe that is something that I might potentially look for in the future. But other than that, I love my blazers, I love my denim jackets, and I love my wool coats. Everything is perfect. And then for my bags, I have a really good lesson here, but first let me go through the bags that I wore 0 times, which I have 2. The first one is my Valentino nude camera bag, and the second is my Saint Laurent leather bag. Then the 2 bags that I wore 2 times, I have my black crossbody bag, and then I also have the burgundy bag. Then the bag I wore 3 times is my off-white bag. Then my black tote I wore only 5 times this time around. My camel backpack I wore 10 times. My coral bag I wore 13 times, and the same goes for my black bag with silver hardware. I also wore it 13 times. But then my pink bag I wore 14 times. I love this one. And then the winner is my tote bag that I wore 20 times. Now the main lesson here is actually something that is very different to how it was in the past, because if you remember years ago, my most worn bags were the very basic no hardware bags. I love wearing those. But recently, and I'm gonna blame Parisa Wang for that because their bags just changed everything for me. But what I started noticing is that I love hardware on the bags. I love bags with a little bit of a character, a little bit of the statement, especially because my capsule wardrobe is a little bit more on the plain side. A lot of my items are a solid color. They don't have many prints. And when I add a bag to a basic outfit, for me, it's a chef's kiss and it makes everything different. And that's why I'm actually considering that I would sell some of my Polen bags, either the Noof Mini, the chalk one, or the Numero 1 Nano in a black color. And what I want to add in my collection is actually a black bag with gold hardware, because I already have the silver one. And then also I want to add bags with silver hardware to my collection because I think that would be absolutely amazing. So this is just something that I'm kind of, I'm in no rush or anything, but it's something that I'm gonna probably changing a little bit in my handbag collection. Maybe I can also add gold chains. I've talked about this before, maybe a gold chain to my black Polen bag, so I can kind of make it black and gold like I want. But yeah, this is the direction I'm gonna be going in because I'm really honoring the part of me that likes the statement bags. I'm a bag girly, I said this before, and it's okay if I have more variety if I have the statement bags with fun hardware and all of that. And then when it comes to the leather bag, I didn't wear it because it's spring. Usually in the spring or in the summer, I don't really reach for the leather bag because it looks very winter and fall-like. And then when it comes to my camera bag, it's right there at the back. I haven't reached for it. And again, this is something that I talked about. Potentially, I might declutter it in the future, but first, I want to go through the entire summer to see if I'm gonna reach for it more, because I do have matching shoes in my collection, so I still want to give it one last chance before I make a decision. And now for the shoes, I have quite a few that I wore only 0 times. First are the kitten heel boots. Then I also have the heeled ankle booties that I wore 0 times. I have my white combat boots that I wore 0 times. And surprisingly, my black loafers I also haven't worn. Then for the shoes that I wore 1 time, I have my leather ankle booties. And then I also have my leather over the knee boots. Then my Ugg boots, this time around, I only wore them 4 times. My nude loafers I wore 6 times. My nude ballet flats I wore 10 times. And then the 2 winners, first I have the more elegant white sneakers that I wore 21 times, and then the classic Converse white sneakers I wore 45 times. No surprise that the white sneakers are my most worn shoes in the transitional season, and I think this time around the reason they are so high is especially because I wore them with my white jeans. If you remember, I wore white jeans all of the time this spring, and I like to pair them mostly with my sneakers. And that's why you also didn't see my over-the-knee boots, the leather over-the-knee boots, in a higher number. In the past, when I wore mostly skinny jeans, I wore my over-the-knee boots all of the time. But now, because my style changed a little bit, I just reach for them a little bit less. But don't get me wrong, in the fall, in the winter, they're still a staple and I still love them. And then when it comes to the heels, yes, I haven't worn them a lot or at all, and that is because my lifestyle currently just doesn't make sense for heels. But I still love these shoes, and I know things can change in the future, and you know, I can have more events and things going on, so I'm gonna keep them. But most of the time I want to be in my flat shoes and I want to be comfortable. And then also the last thing here is that I love my nude shoes. You can see the loafers and also the ballet flats. I wore them quite a lot, especially at the end of the spring. And then when it comes to the accessories, I'm just gonna mention the top 4 items because everything else I wore 0 times or 1 time, and it's not really worth mentioning. But the first thing that I wore 3 times is my white gold belt. Then my black belt with a silver buckle I wore 6 times. My black baseball cap I wore 11 times. And then the winner is the black gold belt that I wore 19 times. Now, nothing surprising here. I said this before, but my black belts are always gonna be at the top. I love my black belts. And then also my baseball cap, the longer I have it in my wardrobe, the more I reach for it because I learned how to style it and I'm really kind of growing into it. When I bought it, I was actually debating, should I buy it or not? Because I just wasn't sure if it's gonna be my style, but this is one of the best purchases I've ever made. And it just adds an extra layer to maybe a more feminine outfit. And then very importantly, it does protect my face from the sun, and that's why I also wore it so much, because sometimes when I was out and about I needed that protection. And now if you want to know more about why I'm tracking my wardrobe and how it changed my life, I'm gonna link another video right here so you can watch it next. But this is it for today. Thank you for stopping by and I will see you next time.